Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So let's go ahead with our third chapter that is about variables. The box with a name, understanding variables. Let's get into it. When I first started learning Python, I imagined data flying everywhere. Numbers, words, lists, all floating in a space like confused balloons. That's when Python gently handed me a box and said, "Here, keep your stuff organized. Name this box and I'll remember what's inside." And that box was called a variable. Okay, now what exactly is a variable? A variable is simply a name that refers to a value stored in a memory. It's like a label container. You store something inside it, like a number, a word, etc. And you can use that name later to get the stored value. When you create a variable, Python automatically creates a space in memory to store the value and links it to the variable name. That's what a variable is. Let's understand its syntax. The syntax of this variable is variable underscore name is equals to value. At the place of variable underscore name, you can give any name, but it is associated with rules. We'll learn it in a later parts, where in the value you can give anything like string, float, number. Let's get with one example. Here we have named a name as a variable and we have given a string to it, that is cocomelon. The second variable is age and the value here is 22, which is a number. The third variable here is a language and the value that we have linked to is a string, Python. When we are printing, it gave the output cocomelon, 22 and Python. Here if you observe, the name, age and language, these are variables. And the sign in between them is called the assignment operator, which helps us to store the value on the right into the variable on the left. So you can think of it like, hey Python, store this value in that box. Now let's understand how Python handles variables internally. For example, think of assigning a value to a variable, suppose x is equals to 10. Python does three things. It creates a memory, it creates a space in the memory, stores the value 10 there, then tags that memory space with the name x. That becomes x is equals to 10. So whenever you use x, Python looks at the memory tag and retrieves the stored value. That's why when you print x, the output 10 pop out. People say Python is dynamically typed. Let's understand how. Unlike many languages where you must declare a variable types like int x is equals to 10, Python says, don't worry, I'll figure it out. That's because Python is dynamically typed. It automatically decides the data types of a variable at a runtime based on the value you assign. For example, if you give x is equals to 10 and if you print the type of that x, you can see that x is an integer. If you give x a string value, if you get the output or type of that variable, the x becomes a string now. If x is being given a float value, if you print the type, you get the float value. Notice something, you never told Python what kind of data x should hold. It simply watched what you stored and adjusted itself. That's flexibility makes Python beginner friendly. You can focus on logic instead of worrying about the data types every time. But remember, with great freedom comes great responsibility. If you change variables types carelessly, your program might behave unexpectedly. Okay, now let's understand variables to the real life analogy. Think of your school bag. In your school bag, you might have different compartments for books, pens, snacks. Whenever you look into a books compartment, you might be finding different subject books. Whenever you look into a snacks compartment, you would be looking for different kinds of snacks. Whenever you're looking into a water compartment, you might be looking for a water bottle. Whenever you need something, you just call it by name. Python does the same. You name your storage, it remembers the content. And since Python is dynamically typed, it's like having a flexible bag. Today it can hold snacks, tomorrow a laptop. You don't have to label it permanently. Now let's get into updating variable values. You can change a variable's value anytime. Python just updates the label. For example, you have given x is equals to 5, but you changed your mind and you wanted to update that x to a value 10. You can do that. If you print now, the output will be 10, not 5, because the x got updated to the value 10. Now the box that once held 5 has been replaced with 10. We can also perform the multiple assignments in one line. Python even allows you to assign multiple variables in one go. For example, if you take a comma b comma c is equals to 1 comma 2 comma 3, if you print a comma b comma c, the output will be 1 comma 2 comma 3. You are assigning multiple variables at a time with multiple values. You can also assign one value to a multiple variables. For that, what you do is x is equals to y is equals to z is equals to Python. I want to assign x, y and z with one value, that is Python. I use this. If I print x comma y comma z, I get the output as Python, Python, Python. As I have mentioned, you can name anything for a variable, but there are some rules for it, which is very, very, very important. Python gives you freedom to name variables creatively, but it has a few simple rules and a few hidden traps. Let's check what are those rules. The first rule is the name must start with a letter and an underscore. And it can contain letters, numbers, and underscore, but no spaces or special characters like at the rate, dollar symbol, or percentage symbol. And the most important point to remember is it is case sensitive. Like if you gave small letters age and capital letter age, these two are different variables. These are case sensitive. The most important point is you can't use reserved keywords like if, for, while, class, etc. For example, if you want to add two numbers, you give a is equals to 5, b is equals to 6, and you are storing those sum in a sum variable. That can't be done because sum is also a reserved keyword. The another important point is use meaningful names, avoid single letters, useless for temporary value. For example, I wanted to add a number. Instead of giving a is equals to b is equals to as a variables, use number 1, number 2, or any meaningful names. Now let's get into the examples. If in the variables, if there are a special characters and there are space, then it comes under a bad examples. And even if it starts with a number, which comes under a bad examples, it should always start with a letter, underscore, and it should have letters, numbers, and underscores as well. It should consider it as a case sensitive, and always remember, don't use reserved keywords. Now, the best practices for beginners is choose clear, short, and meaningful names. Use lowercase letter for regular variables. For example, if you are taking a user age, take the variable as user underscore age. And if you are using the constants like pi, use the uppercase for those constants like capital P and capital I. Keep consistency in naming. Avoid confusing names. I, 0, 1, like these are identical, look same, so make it clear rather than confusing. Let's try a small program. Here this program is all about storing the student's information. The first variable is student underscore name, where I have assigned a string to it. Then the second variable here is student underscore age, assigned its age and a number. Then the course here is the third variable, assigned with a string, that is Python fundamentals. If you display or print the output of all these variables, you get student name as the mentioned name, age 22, and the course as Python fundamentals. See, you just created a mini information system all with variables. Now here are the common interview questions on variables. What is a variable? A variable is a name that refers to a value stored in a memory. The second question is, how do you assign a value to a variable in Python? Using the assignment operator is equals to, the syntax from here is variable underscore name is equals to value. What's the difference between a variable and a constant? A variable's value can change. A constant's value remain fixed by convention written in uppercase. Is Python statically or dynamically typed? Python is dynamically typed. Python decides the type at runtime based on the assigned value. The fifth question is, show an example of Python's dynamic typing. Here, the first variable, the data, is assigned with a value 5. If we print the type of that data, it gave the type as integer. To the same variable, if you assign a string value, if you print the type of that data, it gave a string. Sixth question is, are variable names case sensitive in Python? Yes, the variable names are case sensitive in Python. Here, these are 3 different variables. The seventh question is, can a variable name start with a number? No, it must start with a letter or underscore. The eighth question is, what happens when you assign one variable to another? Here, considering x variable is assigned with a value 5, the x variable is being assigned to another y variable. If you print that y variable, the output is 5. The value of x here is being copied into y. So the takeaway of this chapter is, variables are your code's memory, simple names that hold powerful meaning. And because Python is dynamically typed, those names can hold anything, a number now, a word later, or even an entire list tomorrow. They keep your data organized, reusable, and alive throughout your program. Once you understand variables, you are not just writing code, you are naming your thoughts in a language Python understands.